I'm Dr. Toni Bark. I'm a licensed MD in the state of Illinois. I trained in pediatrics and rehab medicine, and I ran an pediatric emergency room in the inner city. I travel around and I speak.
I'm going to be speaking about ketogenic diet for reversing disease.
I want to talk about issues in vaccine programs and in vaccines themselves. Requirements for medical exemptions are lagging about 30 years behind the science of the epigenetic risk factors.
We're doing things to our genetic expression, to our phenotypes, that we don't understand.
This is a liability-free product that is being mandated on children who have epigenetic susceptibility to injury.
I have a special guest today, the brilliant and the beautiful Dr. Toni Bark. So you were a doctor, you went through med school. Where did you start really looking at vaccines, and where did this, this turn against your own kind?
I was inundated and indoctrinated, and I vaccinated in the clinic. I had no choice, really, but I didn't really think much. It was the 80s. I moved to Israel, came back with a cat, had a vaccinator. People have heard the story before. Within a month, her teeth crumbled and fell out. She developed a heart murmur and asthma, and the vet said it's from vaccination. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, the first time I really heard what vaccines did, it was from vets. They all said, we've been vaccinating more generations than we've been vaccinating of animals than humans, and it's very clear that we're causing more autoimmune diseases and disrupting the immune system and causing some cancer. I can tell you that when I started discovering this a few years ago, really how crazy it was, I was doing my master's in disaster medical management, and I felt like I was falling through a rabbit hole. I do know analytic doctors who still don't get it because they don't want to get it. If they let themselves get it, they'd have to. It rocks your world. And I don't mean that in a good way. It's like, right. Oh, you rocked my world. No, it rocks your world. Like, everything I thought was order is now disorder because the CDC is lying to me because they're in cahoots with Big Pharma.
People will always say you can't go back. We can't go back to clean meat, clean food,
yes, we
clean, water. That this is the world we live in.
We could if we demanded it. It's the canola oil, the soybean oil, the corn, the cottonseed oil, the corn itself, the sugars from the corn, or from the GMO beets. It requires a level of consciousness and effort that a lot of people don't want to put out, but it's what it's going to take in order to change the toxic soup we live in.
We need to stay vigilant. We need to educate people. What is going on? That everyone has cancer and immunosuppression. No. Why?
The problem with the hepatitis B shots that are out in most nations is that we know there's a fair amount of people who are non-responders to it. I did this study. I volunteered when I was a resident in peds and rehab to be in the hepatitis B study. I had 3 rounds, never seroconverted to antibodies. It turns out after I did my SNP variants, I actually have both of those non-responder, SNP variants. And they gave me a 4th dose anyway. Well, it didn't work 3 times. Maybe it'll work the 4th time.
What do you do? I mean, you're very health conscious. Did you somehow clean your body out?
Well, okay, so this was...
I'd be worried about that.
I am worried about it. Obviously, I had a lot of aluminum and mercury in me from that vaccine.
You've saved so many children just in courtrooms that are involved in these cases where one parent is trying to vaccinate and the other one isn't.
I see the courtroom as the place that we actually can have the debate because we're allowed to present. They try to badmouth and they say that I'm not really an expert. Well, I just had another case this week declared in the courtroom on this, it's in the records. They conceded that I'm an expert in adversomics, and they even said vaccines. I just say adversomics. But I've been in cases where the judges kind of know what's going on. They've seen it, or lawyers are familiar with it because they've represented people that were injured in the vaccine court. So there are more and more people where it's touching them personally. And I know it's a lot of work to educate one courtroom at a time. But it's happening.
You're one of the best there is.
That's how the world's been changed, one person at a time.
Dr. Toni Bark, you are a force to be reckoned with.